Welcome to Here's the Story, a show that brings student affairs to life by sharing the authentic voices and lived experiences of those who are shaping the field every day. My name is Helena Gardner, and I'm your host today. My pronouns are she, her, hers, and I have served in higher education at multiple institutions for well over 20 years, primarily in housing. I live my life as a mom, a sister, a daughter, a friend, and a mentor. I want to introduce you to our sponsor for today. Evolve is a series of leadership coaching journeys designed to bring clarity, capacity, and confidence, empowering courageous leadership to reimagine the future of higher education. I am very excited to be here today with one of the Student Affairs Now co hosts. You're not a co host, you're like the originator, Keith. You're like, no,
Co-host is great. I love
co host
co-host.
is great. Keith Edwards. And Keith Edwards does many things. Most of all, what I appreciate about you, Keith, is that you are committed to helping everyone in higher education in the ways that make sense to them. A variety of topics, but you continue to serve and do the work and give. And so I'm excited to have you with us today. If you could share a little bit about yourself, then we'll come back and see what kind of
Yeah.
story you want to tell today.
Well, I love what you just said because I'm a little teary just hearing that. I was really
Oh,
excited to hear what you'd say, but I really like that. I think it touches me because that's what I aspire to is to continue to serve higher education and a little bit beyond, but mostly higher education in a lot of different ways. Someone who's broadly curious and likes to do lots of different things. But one of the things people who I work with hear me say a lot is that I love to be helpful. And so if I
yeah.
can be helpful, I really love to be helpful. Yeah. And
Well,
so
I
I work in
definitely,
higher ed as a co-host with Student Affairs Now. I do leadership coaching and training and development for emerging and executive leaders through Evolve, which you just shared with folks,
whoop, whoop.
curricular approaches, and lots of other things.
That is fantastic. And I love that you said that you move in a space of curiosity. Just had a great
Mhm.
conversation with my son, encouraging me to remember to be curious
Yeah.
and to know that being curious brings awareness. So
Yeah.
thank you for affirming the message. And on that note, I am very curious to know what story you have to tell because I know you've got a bunch of them. So, what you want to talk about today, Keith?
I do. I have lots of them. You and I bantered about lots of possibilities, and I've changed my
Hmm.
mind 7 times today about this story. But I think I want to tell the story today about my experience leaving my full-time campus-based role at Macalester College, um, and what that evoked in me. I started at Macalester. Actually, before I started at Macalester, I got the job there in a flurry right around my dissertation and defending my dissertation at the University of Maryland. And when I shared with folks that I had accepted the job at Macalester as the director of campus life, I was very excited. And Susan Komoves, who is one of my faculty members and on my dissertation committee, and who's someone who I adore and love. And I think we should use that word more, and I don't use it lightly. But Susan's just wonderful. And she sent me an email and said, "This is a great job for you, Keith. This is a director of campus life. You'll soon be a dean of students. You'll soon be a VP, and you'll soon be a publishing VP. And for Susan to be a publishing vice president who is leading and practicing while also thinking and sharing
Yes.
is the epitome. And the fact that Susan
Wow.
Komovis thought I could be that was so affirming and
Hmm.
just the best compliment. And I floated around on that. And then I went to McAllister and I worked really hard at sort of living into that and
Hmm.
doing that job to the best of my abilities. Well, at times, poorly at times. Um, but I tried to do that job to move up to be a dean of students there or somewhere else, and eventually a VP. Not super directly. I'm not someone who focuses on the climbing, but I was trying to develop my skills and develop my capacity to be able to
Yeah.
do that. About 5 years into that job, I went to a weekend coaching workshop where the person said, "What is it that you want?" And I said, "Oh, well, I want to be a dean of students and I want to be a vice president." And the person really got in my face and said, "I think that's just a story you're telling yourself. I don't think that's what you really want." And it was true. And it was a story I had told myself and something I had been really living into. And when I really thought about it, I didn't want to be a dean of students. I wanted the title and the pay, but that was it.
Wow.
And then I thought about being a vice president, and I wanted the title and the pay and the office, but none of the rest of it. And that left me to thinking I had missed out on making the most of my time because I had been pursuing a path that is a wonderful path. And many folks listening to this are on it. And I think it's great. It just wasn't my path. And it reminded me one of the things I work with clients on a lot is the shoulds we have
Hmm.
on ourselves, the ways that others should on us, the way the society shoulds on us, the way we should on ourselves. And what I realized in that moment is the hardest shoulds to let go of are the compliments. And because I hold Susan Komovitz in such high regard, and it was such a compliment that she gave me that I didn't question it. You know, when someone says, Keith, you're never going to amount to anything, I'm like, yeah, watch me. But when someone says, Keith, you're going to be amazing, I go, oh, and I don't question that. And when I started to question it, it led me to things. I was also at that same time of that transformative weekend and that coaching workshop, I was meditating daily and I was reading a lot of positive psychology about what really brings people
Hmm.
joy and meaning and fulfillment. And it wasn't job titles, it wasn't elevated positions, it was like short commutes, time with family, being in nature, having a job of purpose. Um, and so I decided in the fall of 2014 that my 8th year at McAllister would be my last. So I
Hmm.
decided in the end of August, in the midst of orientation and RA training, that this would be my last year and I would leave at the end of the year. And at McAllister, that was the end of May. So I sort of decided about a year out. I didn't tell anybody because no one wants to be dead man walking that long because people move on. But I knew, and I told my partner, and that was a decision that I had made. But I also could take it back. I could push it out a year. You know, there was some flexibility because I hadn't made any big announcements. And so I had this year of going through the cycle, orientation, move in, RA training, convocation, opening, like all these things that you know you're going to do year after year after year. I knew this was my last one. And
Hmm.
so I kind of got to savor them a little bit. I kind of got to look at them and go, why do we do this? This doesn't make any sense. Right? I had a whole different experience of it. And I was assigned three very complicated Title IX cases to investigate that fall. And each time I thought, oh, these are miserable, they're convoluted and complicated, and they're difficult. And no matter what the outcome is, people don't like it. Nobody likes it. This is what's going to remind me that I want to leave. And it wasn't. I felt like I was needed. They were really hard, but my knowledge of sexual violence, my knowledge of the law, my knowledge of counseling skills and listening and being there and navigating all of that. I really felt like my skills and talents were needed. Um, it was when Becky's mom called about the room temperature in her room for the third time that week that I thought, I got to get out of here. This I can't do. So it wasn't the big, hairy, scary deal that affirmed my choice to leave. It was the minutia that I just
Hmm.
didn't want to deal with anymore. I was with my team from McAllister at the ACPA Residential Curriculum Institute, now the Institute on the Curricular Approach, which in 2014, October 2014, was held at Virginia Tech. Wonderful institute, so many great things. And I was with the team from McAllister, about six of us, in the airport to fly home. And I got the news from our dean of students that one of our students had died and that the dean of students had gone to do a welfare check on the room and found the body of the student, uh, which is a thing that I had done about 10 times this semester, my whole time. Always prepared, but never had that experience. And he did. And thankfully, I was with my team from Residence Life, and we were going to go back and really jump into this right away. And we got to process and be on the plane and think through this and come back. And what eventually happened is we hosted a memorial service for the student at McAllister. And it was packed in the chapel at McAllister, which is kind of an open air. It's not actually open air because it's Minnesota, but it's kind of glassed in, so it feels open air. And it was packed, and it was literally standing room only. And so, as a good staff member, I didn't take a seat or take any space. And I found myself sitting on the very outside of the chapel where I couldn't see anything that was happening, sitting on the floor, on the carpet. with my knees held up against me. But I could hear the whole event. And what I heard in that event was our relatively new chaplain, who had just had a baby, navigate these two parents and their shock and surprise and grief through this experience of their mourning and their grieving, and a community, some of which who knew the student and some of which didn't, but they knew of a 19-year-old in college and could relate and connect. And I remember sitting there not being able to see, but really connecting with the parents and really connecting with the chaplain and what that must have been like for her to just have had a baby and now watch these folks who had lost their baby, right? You can be a 19-year-old, 6 foot tall baby.
Yes.
And I remember sitting on the floor just thinking, that's all that matters. That's all that matters. My daughters were 2 and 4 at the time, and I had memories of checking email on my phone while putting them to sleep. I had memories about, I hope they go to bed soon so that I can get to work to get a little bit more work done. I had memories of missing birthdays because of conferences. I had memories of missing big moments because I was away for 2 nights at RA training camp and other things. And I just thought, I'm not doing that. And one of the things I talk with leaders about is getting really rooted in what you care about and what your purpose is and what you won't compromise, separate from the shoulds, separate from society, separate from what your mentor says. And when you really get that figured out, and I really got it figured out, sitting on the floor of that chapel, listening to those parents grieve, listening to that chaplain try her best to navigate through that being a dean of students and a vice president didn't matter to me, that I wanted to be a great dad. And anything that made that more possible was going to be something I would throw myself into entirely. And so that was in October. And I ended up walking away from McAllister at the end of May, sharing publicly about that in February so that people can make decisions and choices and navigate through that. And our vice president, who had been there for 20 plus years, also announced she was retiring at the end of the year. And our director of security, who had been there for 40 years, said he was walking away. So I got caught up in the retirements of people who had spent decades, and I had been there for 8 years. And I shared that not as my retirement, because I'm too pretty for that, which is a great joke about my age. But I said I was graduating from McAllister, and that's how I thought about it ever since.
Wow. So for folks listening, I need to name that I knew what you were going to talk about. And I was like, I'm okay.
Mhm.
And hearing what you talked about, though, is a full life reflection
Yeah.
in a way that I have to agree with you is bigger than roles, titles, and positions.
Hmm.
So I'm sitting with that and it's making me have this loss of words. Because to be honest, I think that we can keep moving and keep doing and keep going and not ever pause long enough to really see the cycle,
Yeah.
as helpers, as teachers, as educators, as supporters. Sometimes we do more
Hmm.
than we sit and see, think, and reflect. So for first, I want to thank you for sharing that story, but also for the self reminder to really see what we're doing.
Yeah, it's so easy to do. I mean, finish high school, go to college, finish college, go to grad school,
Yeah.
get a job, get a doctorate, get a job, get a better job, get a better job. Like you just keep the
You just keep
track in
going,
front of you.
right? Like it's
And when
promotion.
do you stop and say, and I had to have someone like literally yell at me. I think that's not what you want. I think that's a story that you like about you, that you'll be a dean of students and that you'll be a vice president. But that's not what you want. Um, and then sitting on literally on the floor, on the carpet, hugging my knees, listening to these parents sob and a chaplain who couldn't get through the memorial service.
Right.
Uh,
Because also thinking about the full cycle
Her
of
own
life
experience.
and
Yeah.
and caring for the student. I don't want to miss like caring for the student is something that I think we do often
Yeah.
and didn't feel
Yeah.
maybe
And I think
second,
she was
feel it
caring for the
second.
parents in that moment.
Absolutely.
Um,
Absolutely.
and I was just thinking those parents don't care whether they're an associate vice president or a vice president right
Yeah.
now. They would do anything to get their child back and have one more dinner,
Absolutely.
one more frustrating moment, one more difficult conflict, one more hanging up of the phone. Like they would do anything to have those
Yeah.
difficult experiences. Just give me anything for one more chance at that. And so I wanted to be as present, not literally, but also figuratively, like paying attention for as many moments as I possibly could. The good ones, the hard ones, the difficult ones, the inconsequential ones. Um, yeah.
So I feel like this question I have is kind of silly because I don't know how one would, but I'm sure there was at least one day that maybe not regret, but you second guessed that decision. Can you tell us about that day if it existed for you?
Um, I I'm sure you're right. Um, but I don't really remember them. And if there have been
Fantastic.
moments or days, it has been
Hmm.
very fleeting. Um, there was a time where I would check new roles in the Chronicle every day, and then I realized I
Wow.
wasn't really looking for me. I was looking for other people. Like, oh, you know who'd be good for that, and you know who'd be good for that.
Well, that's
Um,
cool.
yeah, the best part about not hiring and not job searching is you can really help other people who are hiring and are job searching, which I
Yeah.
said I love to be helpful. Um, but no, I think that leaving that, and I love McAllister still do. It's a great place, incredible place, great students, great faculty. It's special. It was also hard, and I was treated unfairly, I think, and
Hmm.
wasn't appreciated. And that's all part of that story too. It wasn't
Yeah.
just epiphany. I think there were some things that I struggled with and didn't felt seen and heard and appreciated. Um, I also had a side gig for years before that, doing speaking and consulting, and so I could
Hmm.
scale it up. So um, I also am very privileged in the ways that we think of that. That's true.
Hmm.
I've also been very fortunate. That is also true. Uh, I've also worked my tail off. That is all of the above, right? They don't cancel each
Yes.
other out, right? The hard work doesn't cancel out being privileged. Being privileged doesn't cancel out also being fortunate. All of that has been a part of the journey.
And what I love about you naming it in that way is for me, I heard that in juxtaposition to the shoulds.
Hmm.
You found the what you are, how it is, and what it is, and you led with that
Yeah.
versus how you should have been or you should be.
Yeah.
So tell me what you think about the shoulds now. How do the shoulds look to you having the opportunity to kind of experience and answer the question of doing what you want?
Yeah. I mean, it's something that I ask my coaching clients all the time. I just was talking with a coaching client who's saying, I'm an AVP. Do I want to be a VP?
Hmm.
And I said, here's the deal. Um, I work with people who are smart, talented, and personable. And there's a lot of smart people in this world. There's a lot of personable people in this world. There are not a lot of people who are smart, talented, and personal, right?
Right.
That's a very limited set. And I tell these folks all the time, there's an old game you had to play where you would look in the Chronicle, take calls from search firms about new positions, and see if you want to do that or not. I don't think that's a game anyone should play at the senior level. I think you should figure out, what do you want? Stop ordering off the menu. Create your own, figure out what you want and go get it. Don't look at the
Mm,
menu of options that happen to be available in October 2025 for higher ed leadership and go, well, which ones am I going to apply to? Figure out what you want, which is the hard part. Separate from the should, separate from what your mentor wanted, separate from what's the next level up, separate from what your colleagues in grad school are now doing. What do you want?
mm.
And then go get it. And go get it is actually quite easy. My clients don't have any problem with the strategy and execution. They do that all day long. What they have a trouble
Oh,
with is, I think I want to be a VP. Do you? And sometimes they do, which is fine. I work with a lot of VPs. I work with a lot of presidents. I think that's great if that's what you want. But a lot of people end up working really hard to get a thing for years or a decade. They get the thing and then look around and go, I don't even want this. And
mm,
I think that's a real tragedy. So if we can say, what do you want? Well, I want to be a VP at a small private liberal arts college on the East Coast that really values internationalism and this and this and this. Okay, great. Let's go get it.
yeah,
Rather than, what's
yeah.
available? A search firm called about this. Do I want? Okay. You're just choosing from a limited set of options. And when you graduate with your master's, you do that, right? You order off the menu. But when you get to a certain level, you got to shift away from that.
I love that. That's such great advice. I am taking it in personally, and it makes a lot of sense. It makes a lot of sense because eventually, I like to say post 40, I realized I was living my life. At 40, I was living my life for who knows what and why.
Right.
Way
Shoulds.
for 40 years, right?
Hmm.
Meeting people's expectations,
Yep.
following the path. And then somewhere early 40s, something clicked for me that, well, this is my life.
Hmm.
And started making decisions ever since for the next, what I say, the next half of my life.
Hmm.
And
Hmm.
if I do this math right, it's a half, maybe I'm more like 75% of my
Hmm.
life. So I can have, a little bit more time on the other end if I'm lucky enough.
Yeah.
And because for 40 years, it was the shoulds.
Yeah.
It feels like early stages of learning the wants.
Yeah. Yeah.
So today you share this story.
Hmm.
Why this one today? What are you seeing? What are you hearing? What are you thinking? What have you learned?
I think what evoked this story today is the leaders that I'm talking to in higher education in particular who tell me it is so hard. And
Yeah.
I believe them. And one of the things I tell them is, I want to help you be the eye at the center of the hurricane. I
Mm,
want you to be so grounded, so centered, so rooted, so that you can be calm and navigate this world swirling around you rather than being tossed around in the storm.
mm,
If you're waiting for the world to get organized to bring you peace, calm, and joy, you're in trouble. I use stronger language, but you're in trouble. Um, how are you going to find peace, calm, and joy,
mm,
and then navigate the chaos, the uncertainty, the VUCA, the volatile, uncertain, complex, and ambiguous world that we're living in?
mm.
And so I work with a lot of my clients. Just about every coaching client, the first 4 sessions are cornerstones or personal foundations that really help them figure out what they want and get them away from the shoulds and get, this is what matters
Yeah.
to me. This is what I won't compromise. Separate from my parents, separate from my culture, separate from my faith, separate from my should, separate from my mentors, but informed by all of that. What I genuinely, truly care about are these things. And then once you're clear about that, then what do you want becomes a much easier question based on that rather than, well, my roommate when I was in grad school makes 125, and so I got to make more than that or so, right? There's this point we all go through where our amazing, impressive friends become VPs. And then there's the point where our unimpressive, unamazing friends become VPs. And we look around and go, what is going on? Um, but keeping up with the Joneses, I'm not a Jones.
Yeah.
I want to figure out what's the life I want to lead. And I'm inspired. This story is about death. I'm inspired by death. That student's
Ah,
death was tragic and it really inspired a major shift in my life. I am inspired by hearing people on their deathbed and what they care about and what they don't care about. They care about the things that they regret the things they never tried. They never gave a shot. They never said. That's what they care about. And so living life without regret, I think, is a big part of that. But I talk with a lot of higher ed folks who are caught up in the storm, are trying to please everyone and pleasing no one. They are trying to make people happy who aren't going to be happy, but they've lost their roots. They've lost their center. They've lost their ground. And when you gain that, then navigating all of that very difficult stuff is a completely different experience. And I was trying to think what was my moment of that. Because I'm really good at telling other people's stories, but this was, you made me tell mine. I was remembering sitting on the floor in that chapel, listening to these parents grieve and a chaplain who had just had a baby navigate their grief as parents and thinking, I can't think of anything else that measures up. And that was part of my root, part of my grounding, part of my centering.
thank you for sharing that, Keith. It is, I want to say this with tact, and I can't think of any other way to say it, but it's an interesting space to be and to share, to be inspired by death.
Mhm.
And yet it is so foundational to the gift of life. And
Yeah.
that is that is what I'm hearing is
Yeah. If we had
how do you want
unlimited
to live your
time,
life? Yeah,
today wouldn't mean as
yeah,
much.
yeah, absolutely.
We don't. It's limited for sure.
And we
And,
don't,
and we don't know when.
we don't know when.
Yeah.
And we don't know when. And so I don't know. I think the final question I have you, I just have so many directions I want to go with this. As you are helping and coaching folks,
Mhm.
how are we doing with finding our center? With the great resignation preceding us a few years back, changes all over
Mhm.
this country and the globe impacting
Yeah.
the work as we've known it, experiencing students differently. Post COVID, I would offer we probably always were going to get a different
Mhm.
experience in this work. How are we doing when you ask us to center ourselves? And I'll say it this way: when you were what's nexting,
Mhm.
and you had some years to work on your want and not your shoulds,
Mhm.
how are folks who didn't pause
Hmm.
early enough? How are they doing? Can we do it? It's so many things in this. I could do a
Oh yeah.
who, what, when, and how with that
Yeah.
question.
Anybody can do it, and it doesn't be have to do something you do
Mm.
early. It can be something. And I just finished up with a client who is 82 years old and retiring for the third time. Now she's
Oh,
actually been retired for 20 years, but she's retiring from a board position, and she's trying to figure out what do I really want? What do I want to move forward? And
yeah.
for her, it is about connecting with her native culture and roots and language and being in nature and being with her husband and cutting everything else out. So we can do this at any stage in the game.
Mm,
Um, the tools I very specifically that I use is what is your inner guide, which is a visualization. What is your life purpose? Getting that down to a
mhm,
sentence that you have memorized.
mhm,
What are your core values, which are 3 to 5 core values that you might get
mm,
tattooed on your left arm.
mm, mm,
And then learning how to navigate what I call your inner critic, which is that voice in our head that says, you're not good enough. But maybe if you get a VP role, you will be.
mm.
You're not good enough, but maybe if you make this much money, then you will be. You're not good enough, but maybe if you get the NASPA pillars of the profession, you will be. And I mean, how many people have I've heard people say, if I never make a VP, I don't, my career is a failure.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
I just remember, now I hear that with so much, I just want to give you a hug.
Yeah.
If that's what your whole self-worth is centered around, that just makes me so sad. And I just want to give you a hug and say you're so much more than that.
Oh,
Uh,
that's so precious. That's so
but
precious.
but we can do it at any time. And when you have those things to turn to at 3 o'clock in the morning when you can't sleep, to turn to right before you go in and have the really tough conversation, to turn to when you're driving into work and you don't wanna, to turn to when you got to give the speech in front of everyone, then you walk through life grounded and centered and rooted.
Yeah.
And then COVID just becomes another practice.
Yeah.
Uh, Trump administration becomes another way to practice. Uh,
Yeah.
the student difficulty becomes another way to practice. The student protests in the admin building gives another opportunity to practice.
Yeah.
And we shift
Mm.
how we engage with the storm swirling around us. Because I don't think that storm's going away. I think that storm's going to get more complex, more uncertain as we continue on. And so rather than say it shouldn't be this way, these things shouldn't be happening to us, I agree, but that's arguing with reality. Or let's just wait until enrollment's
Yeah.
good. I talk with a
Yeah.
lot of people, their enrollment's great. They're still panicking.
Yeah.
Um, so how do we
Yeah.
bring centeredness so we can lead from there? Because leading from fear and scarcity is totally understandable, and I completely get it. And there is so much evidence,
Yeah.
and it won't help you lead forward.
Mm. And it sounds like it feeds the shoulds,
Oh yeah,
starts to feed the shoulds, and then
that inner
again,
critic is like, I love it.
constantly, yeah.
Let's
And you're
go.
just and you're chasing it.
Yeah,
And
you're not
and I
smart
hear you
enough. You're not
saying that,
accomplished enough.
yeah,
You're not
yeah,
enough. You're not whatever. But it's basically you're not enough.
yeah. And yet if you're practicing those things you identified,
Yeah,
it's not actually about being enough. I'm
yeah,
hearing it as being able to do it in the
yeah,
ways that make sense for you, to you, and that's all you can give.
yeah,
It's kind
yeah.
of all
You
you
have
can
these inner
give.
resources
Yeah,
that don't have another job, that don't charge by an
yeah,
hour, that are there at 3 o'clock in the morning when you can't sleep.
yeah,
They become things you can build a life around.
yeah. And in those inner resources, those are the things we bring,
Yeah,
right? I just thinking of so many conversations. When we're sitting at that table, we bring our inner resources, and
yeah,
it doesn't have to be two things more. We might stretch that skill a little bit further,
yeah,
depending on
yeah,
what's going on. And if that's not the thing on our list, yeah, tap in someone else sometimes.
yeah,
But we don't have to tap ourselves out and dispose of ourselves because of the shoulds. And I just appreciate that because also what I want to say in this story today, what I heard is you found somewhere else, somehow else, someplace else to do it
hmm
that felt like what you wanted, but not what you should have done.
Right. Well, and what I was leaving for in May 2015 is not at all what I'm doing now. But that's probably a different story.
Yeah. Well, I mean, you're still raising those babies. You're still raising those babies and
They
you're
are
still
now
present with
13
them.
and 15, and they're still
Yes.
my babies.
Yes. Yes. Well, Keith, thank you for sharing that story today. I
Thank
do
you for
think
having
that
me.
a lot of us, a lot of us in doing this work are looking to make it make sense. And
Mm.
we don't know. And what I appreciate about this platform we have is the opportunity to hear from a colleague, reflect, take it in, and really get to normalizing our experiences in ways that maybe don't match exactly what we're all doing. But
Hmm.
in fact, in this life thing, we're all on the same journey. We are
Yeah.
absolutely all on the same journey. And so I really thank you for this story. I know you have so many to tell, but thank you for this story.
Yeah. Thank
Thank you
you.
for that. Thank you. Well, friends, I am I'm in awe, and I'm just going to say it's because I'm in a very personal space of reflection. Keith and I will chit chat about that later. But I want to close out with a little bit more about Evolve, our great sponsor today, as you acknowledge, a company Keith works very closely with. Higher education is facing unprecedented challenges. Higher education needs courageous leadership now more than ever, and poor leadership has never been more costly. A new generation of leaders with the capacity to lead forward is not optional, it's urgent. These challenges are also full of possibilities for courageous leaders who are able to let go and move forward, accepting the challenges we are facing as real and embracing their agency to lead with and through them. At Evolve, Evolve helps leaders face these realities with clarity, capacity, and confidence. Evolve offers leadership coaching journeys for leadership teams and individual leaders focused on executive leaders, emerging executives, emerging leaders, and those leading for equity. This has been Here's the Story, part of the Student Affairs Now family. We are so glad you joined us today. I hope you had a chance to reflect. Maybe you cried a little. Maybe you laughed a little. I hope you learned a lot, and I hope you always continue to celebrate being a part of the student affairs experience. If you have a story, and we all have a story to tell, please consider sharing with us by leaving a 2-minute pitch via voicemail at studentaffairsnow.com. If you know how to find me, please reach out to me directly. I'm happy to get you connected. Every story is welcome. Every earnest perspective is worthy. And if you don't feel like sharing yours, you can still find my story, Keith's story, and other stories at studentaffairsnow.com on YouTube and anywhere you listen to podcasts. Again, this has been Here's the Story. Thank you so much, Keith, for being with us. And we will join you all on the next episode. Thank you.